It's a delight for me to have Stuart Cameron with me. Stuart, it's a pleasure to talk to you today.
It's a great honour and privilege to be with you, Keith.
Stuart, when I came from the other end of the earth, as it were, to come here. Gordon Moyes came from Melbourne to here. Alan had been travelling a little bit prior to that. You're coming from the far country of Queensland, aren't you?
I am indeed, yes. The Premier let me into the state and here I am.
Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing, just in that brief term, and then I'm going to talk a little bit longer.
So for 15 years I've been the lead minister for New Life Church. So I started around the same time you started here at Wesley Mission, and I've been leading that church, which also has community services expression as well. Planted a number of churches over the last 15 years. It's been my great privilege to be able to lead that community in southeast Queensland.
But your home is originally in South Australia.
It is, yeah. You know, I'm a South Australian, born and bred. Grew up in rural South Australia, lived in Adelaide for some time, and that's where I came from and where I did my ministry training, and where I also was expressing leadership within the life of the church as well.
So let me ask a question about faith.
Mm-hmm.
You were brought up in a Christian home?
I was, yeah. My dad eventually ended up in the ministry. He was a Presbyterian elder and really got caught up and heavily influenced by the charismatic renewal movement and sensed the call of God into the ministry. And that really shaped my own formation as well. The Uniting Church in South Australia is very much influenced by Methodism, even though I grew up Presbyterian. That very strong commitment to the holiness tradition, evangelism, etc. And I was at a Keswick convention in Belgrave in Victoria, where I made a personal faith commitment at the age of 12.
When dear George Duncan was preaching.
George Duncan, a wonderful Scottish preacher and teacher of the word, just an amazing...
George had an amazing ministry in Glasgow at the Tron, which was a great church in that city area of Glasgow. So tell me, you accepted the call to come to Wesley Mission, to the role that you're going to come into. What was it that drew you to Wesley Mission?
Well, I'd admired Wesley Mission from afar for a long time, under Sir Alan Walker's leadership, Gordon's, your leadership over the last 15 years, and explicitly its commitment, I think its unique commitment in the Australian landscape to word and deed ministry, a strong commitment to the gospel in all of its full expression. And, you know, I had a strong admiration, again, as I said, from afar. And no one was more surprised than I when there was an approach to consider the possibility of a call here. But I'm delighted to be here now.
And this word and deed, let me just tease that out a little bit. The preaching of the word is very straightforward. The deed is not just kindly deeds, is it? It's more deep than that, isn't it? We see it as a part of... Was that something that was already in your mind?
Most definitely. If I read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, I see that Jesus was always someone who was drawn towards those who were on the margins, those that society often would walk past or even ignore. And so I see that Wesley Mission also has that commitment to express the love of Christ, not only in what we say, but more explicitly in what we do. And I think that's part of any holistic expression of the gospel. It's about what we say, it's about proclamation unashamedly, but it's also about the expression in our actions as well.
One of my colleagues would talk about the last, the least, and the lost.
Indeed.
And that really is what we're about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Tell me what your first impressions are.
Well, my first impressions are, wow, what an incredible legacy to step into. More than 200 years of history, some amazing leaders that have sat in the chair that you sit in now and I'll soon sit in. But the first impression I've had is just the amazing commitment of the leadership team here. To live out the values and the purpose and the mission, the vision of Wesley Mission in a 21st century context. The leaders that I've met are people who are absolutely and fundamentally committed to doing all the good we can to as many people, for as many people as we can, with that Christ-like servanthood, that commitment, that courageous commitment, commitment to integrity. Living out the values and the vision is very much at the fundamental heart of Wesley.
And this isn't a statement from me, but it's a reality we share. You've been a minister long enough and in big churches and said it. You'll know that it won't be easy, don't you?
Absolutely.
You're going to walk into challenges. How have you faced challenges before?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. There's a scripture that says, faithful is the one who calls you, if he will also do it. In many ways, and I've said this quite explicitly, I'm not ready for this role. I've never been ready for any role that I've stepped into. But I'm a firm believer that God makes us ready. When God calls, God equips. And so I really believe that there's no challenge that I will face that with God's help, and let me stress that, with God's help, I'm not able to meet and overcome. So I'm relying on that which I've relied on in the past. That's the grace of God, the faithfulness of God to provide me with everything, and more particularly us with everything we need to meet the challenges that come down the pipe.
And the truth is that we have, and I as well as Gordon and Alan, we're used to running big churches.
Yeah.
This adds more to the portfolio than that, because we've got some very gifted ministers and leaders. It's this whole business of working in the community and not losing the Christian emphasis of this work.
Absolutely. I think Wesley has a unique opportunity, continued opportunity, to be a prophetic voice in the Australian landscape. Because of our commitment to the gospel, because of our embedded nature within the community. I mean, 160,000 people a year we serve. I mean, that's an incredible footprint that we have, and what we hear from those whom we serve, we're able to then reflect back to government, to leaders, to agencies and others, to enable us to speak with some authority about what is happening within our community. And I think bringing those two things together, what we hear from the people we serve, what we know of our gospel convictions, I think that is something that enables us to speak with that prophetic voice.
Having looked at our community services footprint, is there any particular area that excites you as being something that, you know, I can't wait to get my teeth into that?
Well, it's a bit like picking out a favourite child, isn't it? I mean, that's a difficult question to answer, but you know, I was particularly struck by, and this is it's a long-term commitment, but our foster care services. I mean, 670 children a night under the auspices of Wesley Foster Care. I mean, that's a statistic, but it's the stories that sit alongside that statistic of lives being transformed by loving homes that are providing stability and a real future hope for those families and particularly those children. But I mean, that's just one of many, but that's one I would pick out at this point in time.
And you will have many people who will be guests on your programme as the years go by. You've obviously been watching. Don't tell me you haven't. You've been watching.
You've most definitely been watching.
Tell me, what is it that excites you about the ministry that takes you outside of the usual parameters of church life as it is?
Well, I'm curious by nature, Keith, and so I'm looking forward to learning a lot from the guests that we will continue to have here at Wesley Impact TV. I'm looking forward to learning from them, from their experience, from their story, from their insight, and hopefully bringing that to a wider audience as well. So I'm looking forward to that learning journey that I'm on. As I said, I'm curious by nature, so I can't wait to hear people's stories.
And the combination of guests and music, first-class music, and interviews, they're all part of something special that's brought together with the words that you'll share. Have you always enjoyed preaching?
Yes, I have. I mean, there are times when you get up to preach and you think, why me and why now? But no, I count preaching, the proclamation of the word, as an enormous privilege. I always approach it prayerfully, carefully, and with a sense of the honour that responsibility is.
When John came to the city of Nottingham in the UK, there he sat on the edge of the city and said, I can do no other than offer them Christ.
Indeed.
And that's what you'll do, and I will be watching carefully to share the joy of doing that. Are there any things that frighten you? Don't say everything, because we don't want everything to frighten you, but are there some things that are a concern for you?
I think, you know, the very breadth of Wesley's ministry is its strength, and it's unique charisma or gift, if I could put it that way. And I think, you know, being across all of that is something that's going to be an enormous challenge for me. It doesn't scare me, but it's a challenge that's front and square for me. You know, I don't approach this new role anxious or fearful, but I do approach it with, if I could put it this way, this is going to sound contradictory, with some fear and trembling. Yeah. It's an awesome privilege and responsibility. Yeah. And as I said before, I'm going to need all the grace of God that He's going to extend to me to be able to achieve it.
I think that word fear, there is a fear of the Lord, isn't there? As opposed to just a fear of...
A reverence of.
Yeah.
A reverence of God and the calling that God has led you into. And I think that's a healthy and a holy thing, to have that sort of reverence and awe.
And I know, just as I've had Carol behind me for this period of time, and all throughout my ministry, and as I look to the future, you've got Sue as well, who's very much behind what you...
Absolutely, yeah. Sue's the great adventurer. She's the prayer warrior. She's the one who serves alongside me. It's very much as it has been with you and Carol, a team ministry, and we have very complementary gifts. And she, equally with me, is excited about this opportunity. It's been no small thing for us to move, to leave, but we're looking forward to the challenge.
Well, thank you for sharing with me and giving me the privilege of speaking to you. And I'm looking forward to supporting this guy in the years that lie ahead. Keep supporting him with your prayers. Keep tuning in and making Wesley Impact a real programme that we together can treasure, that we can see as part of the Australian Christian offering in this nation. May God bless you, and thank you for all the years of being able to share together in interviews such as this.